Welcome to Korean Cinema Channel. Today I would like to send you the following news. He said he had a girlfriend, but then, at a celebration event in Hangzhou, he cried in front of another woman, completely undone, and that's where it gets interesting. On the evening of October 8, the so-called fan meet in Hangzhou was less a casual gathering and more a live stage for Liu Xiaoxu and Guo Yuxin to accidentally reveal everything. At first, it was subtle, almost imperceptible. Guo Yuxin's microphone cord tangled around her hand, and as she turned, Liu Xiaoxu instinctively bent down to untangle it, a motion so natural it could only have been muscle memory. Fans watching from the front row gasped, but some thought, it's just considerate, nothing more. Then came the next moment. Guo Yuxin adjusted his crooked tie, and without missing a beat, he stood behind her, lifting the hem of her dress ever so slightly, making sure she wouldn't trip. There was no hesitation, no staged choreography, just a fluid, instinctive attentiveness that screamed intimacy. Each tiny gesture built on the last, shared glances, fleeting touches, smiles that lingered a beat too long. By the time the event ended, it was clear to everyone watching, something was happening between them that was entirely real. It wasn't loud, it wasn't exaggerated, but it was impossible to ignore. The audience could feel the quiet electricity radiating from them, the kind of chemistry that doesn't need words to tell a story. It was both heartbreaking and intoxicating, a perfect storm of emotion compressed into a handful of gestures, and in that moment, one undeniable truth emerged: sometimes, the smallest actions speak louder than confessions ever could under normal circumstances. These little gestures, helping untangle a cord, adjusting a tie, holding up a dress, might simply be chalked up to polite, professional behavior between co-stars. A display of gentlemanly courtesy. Nothing more, but the problem, or rather the thrill, lay in the context. Their short drama Summer's Fender had just shattered 3 billion views online, and the pair they portrayed on screen had carved themselves into viewers' hearts so deeply that reality and fiction seemed to blur evidently. Every subtle movement between Liu Xiaoxu and Guo Yuxin wasn't just considerate, it was laid on with layers of meaning, ripe for interpretation. Their professional camaraderie now carried the weight of a story millions had fallen for, and their newfound fame only intensified every nuance. Fans weren't just watching, they were dissecting, analyzing, projecting, and fantasizing in real time. At the celebration in Hangzhou, this effect was magnified tenfold. Fans began teasing about that infamous scene in the drama, the one where Liu Xiaoxu's character warms Guo Yuxin's feet. His ears turned a deep crimson at the mention, and his voice stammered, that was just an improvised moment, but his eyes? They didn't leave Guo Yuxin for even a fraction of a second. The subtle avoidance of outright mission made the moment feel far more electric, far more intimate, than a simple confession ever could. Every observer felt it, a silent, almost illicit tension threading through the air even behind the scenes. The attention to detail was telling. A staff member quietly availed that Liu Xiaoxu's team had coordinated the stage lighting in advance. The side fill lights were deliberately angled toward Guo Yuxin, softened slightly to avoid dazzling her eyes. She had casually mentioned being sensitive to strong lights, and without hesitation, adjustments were made. A small, almost invisible act, but to anyone aware, it spoke volumes about his attentiveness, his concern, his inclination to prioritize her comfort over everything else. It was these nuances, these tiny yet deliberate actions, that made the event feel like an extension of the drama itself. What might have seemed like normal protocol for two actors suddenly became an intoxicating display of care and attention. Fans erupted online, rewatching clips frame by frame, dissecting hand movements, glances, and fleeting reactions. Every audience member, present or remote, became a participant in a story that was unfolding not just on screen, but in the real world. By the end of the night, with the soft glow of the stage lights, the rustle of scripts, and the quiet intimacy of gestures that were neither scripted nor staged, it became impossible to deny the unspoken truth: some moments aren't just seen, they're felt, lingering in your chest long after the applause fades. The climax of the evening came during the interactive session, and it hit everyone like a lightning bolt. Without warning, both of them began to cry. Not the polished, performative tears you see on stage for effect, but raw, uncontrollable emotion, streaming freely down their faces. The crowd froze, jaw slack, utterly unprepared. This wasn't part of the script. They had wrapped filming weeks ago, so what on earth was happening now? Social media erupted almost instantly. Fans and observers flooded the internet with theories, some absurd, some chillingly plausible. The wildest yet most convincing speculation suggested that Liu Xiaoxu's tears were not about the drama, They were about love denied. Though he already had a girlfriend, the intense collaboration with Guo Yuxin had stirred something undeniable. The struggle, the guilt, the longing, it all collided in that one public moment, leaving him exposed and vulnerable. And there, in the glare of camera flashes and the wide-eyed crowd, his emotions spilled over in a way that was impossible to hide. Guo Yuxin, too, could not hold back. Her tears seemed to mirror his, but there was a subtle difference. Hers were a quiet, heart-wrenching acknowledgement, a response to a love that could not exist in the real world. The two of them, standing side by side yet trapped in the invisible barriers of circumstance, created a scene so intense that the audience could almost feel the weight of unspoken words, the heaviness of impossible desire. Every sob, every trembling lip, every tear-streaked glance became its own narrative, a story of longing, restraint, and shared pain that no dialogue could capture. Fans watching online dissected every second of footage, replaying moments of eye contact and subtle gesture, each frame fueling speculation and obsession. "He's crying for her," one wrote. "And she's crying back for him," replied another. Within minutes, trending hashtags swarmed the platforms, turning the celebration into a spectacle of rumor, fascination, and emotional voyeurism. People weren't just watching actors, they were witnessing a raw collision of reality and fiction, a blurred line that left everyone questioning where the performance ended and the real life began. In that moment, the celebration was no longer about a successful drama. It became a live tableau of love, loss, and longing, a demonstration of emotions too complicated and potent to remain contained. The crowd could feel the tension, the weight of a connection that existed in fragments, fleeting and forbidden, yet utterly undeniable. And as the stage lights softened and the sobs quieted, one unshakable truth lingered in the air: some stories aren't told with words, they're etched into tears, leaving everyone who witnesses them forever changed. It sounded almost surreal, more compelling than the script itself. The star-making power of short dramas is nothing short of terrifying. They compress the production of industrial-grade romance into an almost impossibly short time frame, churning out emotional highs so fast it borders on alchemy. And in doing so, they blur the lines between actor and character, between staged affection and real connection. Fans binge the episodes, obsessing over the couple, and before long, it's impossible to tell where the drama ends and reality begins. The sweetness on screen, the meticulously choreographed gestures and whispered confessions, is almost hypnotic. Viewers watch, hearts racing, rooting for love in its purest, most cinematic form. But behind the cameras, behind the carefully framed shots and cinematic lighting, the emotions are often far messier. Every smile and gaze, every subtle touch carries the weight of the story and the weight of the actors inhabiting those roles. The more intoxicating the on-screen romance, the more exhausting, and sometimes painful, the off-screen reality becomes. For Liu Xiaoxu and Guo Yuxin, that boundary was almost non-existent. The world watched as they laughed, cried, and moved together, and in doing so, it became increasingly hard to separate the character from the actor. Fans didn't just ship the CP, they lived it, dissecting every interaction, every accidental touch, every glance that lingered too long. And the actors themselves. Perhaps they never intended to step out of the story. Perhaps their emotions, carefully masked during rehearsals and filming, had begun to spill over naturally, spilling into public moments in ways that felt both inevitable and shocking. The drama sweetness may have been artificial, engineered for maximum impact. But the tears, the fleeting hesitations, the flashes of genuine care, they were visceral, undeniable. And in a collision of fantasy and reality, the audience is left with a thrilling, terrifying question: how much of what we see is performance, and how much is raw, unfiltered truth? Some nights, fans scroll endlessly through clips, revisiting the subtle gestures, the unscripted laughs, the shared silences that hint at something deeper. They watch, and rewatch, and wonder if the actors themselves can ever truly return to their private selves, now that the world has witnessed this intimate, intoxicating spectacle. In the end, short dramas don't just entertain, they consume. And for Liu Xiaoxu, Guo Yuxin, and everyone caught in between fiction and reality, there's only one certainty: once the audience falls in love with a story this intense, there's no turning back, and perhaps, neither is there for those living it. Thank you for watching my channel. See you in the next videos. Thanks.